Check this out. President Trump signs the executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. Y'all like the video? And check this out.
Washington's been all talk, no action, and politicians from both sides of the aisle have made promises and never delivered. They told us they'd control the border, never did. Move the embassy to Jerusalem, never did. Abolish the Department of Education, never did.
And I will tell you, it's three agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there?
The government shouldn't be in the middle of everything, and we certainly don't need a federal Department of Education.
We propose to dismantle two cabinet departments, energy and education. There's only one way to shrink the size and cost of big government, and that is by eliminating agencies that are not needed and are getting in the way of a solution.
Well, Trump just did it with a stroke of a Sharpie.
I will sign an executive order to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all. We're going to be returning education very simply back to the states where it belongs. And this is a very popular thing to do, but much more importantly, it's a common sense thing to do, and it's going to work. I want to just make one little personal statement. Teachers to me are among the most important people in this country. And we're going to take care of our teachers. And I don't care if they're in the union or not in the union. That doesn't matter.
'47's tearing down another pillar of liberalism. The Department of Education was started under Jimmy Carter, and it was supposed to make our kids smarter. 4 decades later, it's failed.
Caroline, what do you say to critics of the president's education?
Where was their criticism of our nation's failing test scores for the last several decades? The Department of Education was founded in the 1970s, and since then we have spent more than $3 trillion at this federal bureaucracy. What has been the return on that investment for the American taxpayer? Levels that are less than ideal, less than proficient. Our children's test scores are incredibly concerning when it comes to reading rates, literacy rates, math, and science test scores. The numbers prove that.
We're spending $250 billion a year. And as Bush said, is our children learning? We're spending more money than we did in the 70s, but reading scores are lower now than they were in the 70s. A third of America's students can barely read. 8th grade reading just hit its lowest level ever. College kids can't pass simple civics exams. Want proof? Here's Johnny.
Who was the first president of the United States?
First president of the United States? That was...
Where is Ukraine?
Ukraine. Don't make me sound stupid.
It's in the world.
How's Kamala doing?
Kamala? I don't even know who that is. I don't even know who that is.
What happened on the first Thanksgiving?
The first Thanksgiving?
The Pilgrims went on a bender. And then they ate turkey.
Kids can't read, write, or do math, but that's not stopping them from graduating. Teachers are just inflating grades to meet standards and passing them anyway. So the schools hit their numbers and keep getting paid. In Connecticut, a student is suing her school district for graduating her with honors, even though she was illiterate. I thought the Wolf of Washington cared about the kids.
When people ask me what are the 3 most important issues facing the Congress, for my whole time in Congress, I've always said the same thing. Our children, our children, our children.
When people ask me what are the 3 most important issues facing the Congress, I always say the same thing. Our children, our children, our children.
I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about the future, America's working families, for the children. It's always about the children.
Nancy Pelosi talks more about January 6th than reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now, what have we done to fix this? We've filled public schools with more teachers just to inflate union dues. And the unions send those dues to Democrats. They shut down schools during COVID and said reopening them would be racist.
Today, state legislators released a revised plan in Senate Bill 86 to try to force schools to physically reopen. If you condition funding on the reopening of schools, that money will only go to white and wealthier schools that do not have the transmission rates that low-income Black and brown communities do. This is a recipe for propagating structural racism.
And while the schools were closed, the teachers' unions stayed home and danced.
It's our livelihood versus our lives. Safe. In this moment, be safe.
The unions forced Biden to keep the schools closed, and our children got dumber and more depressed. And now Randy's rewriting history.
COVID was a terrible time for us. And as you know, because I was on your show a lot and other shows, I wanted schools to be reopened as early as April of 2020. The issue was the fear and the issue was the safety issues. But COVID has really hurt in so many ways. But this has been a Republican talking point for a long time.
Well, Republicans have been talking about it because they heard what Randy said.
And if people are in high risk, they shouldn't be in school. They should be doing things remotely. Just because Donald Trump wants to take a risk with people who go to bars or beaches, those of us who have spent our life teaching kids are not going to take a risk with kids or with our members' lives.
Remote and hybrid are really the only two ways you can reopen schools safely.
The unions wanted to keep schools closed because they got hundreds of millions of dollars and they didn't have to go to work. What did they do with the money? Well, they bought a few hand sanitizer stations and the rest of the money disappeared. A lot of it got embezzled. For them, it was about money and power.
NEA, we have to win all the things, all the things, all the things. Our colleagues are depending on us to win all the things. Keep going, NEA. To preserve our democracy, we must win all the things. Delegates, we won't go back. We will keep going forward because we are the NEA. We are the NEA. We are the NEA.
The teachers' unions got stronger and the parents got shut out. Girls were getting bathrooms by trans boys and dads were getting arrested at school board meetings for calling it out. The Biden administration actually spied on parents who called out CRT in the classrooms, even though schools were getting caught red-handed.
What does the MAGA crowd or the church say when you start talking about social justice?
You teach it to a group of seniors at West Jordan High, and they don't ultimately talk to students about what is diversity, what is microaggressions, especially at the middle school level.
Or even middle school, do they get any social justice?
Yeah, in junior high, yes. We have a very close partnership with Planned Parenthood, and they come speak in our district all the time.
Whenever our team goes out, we don't do an opt-out prior to. They just go out, meet the kids, work with them. We operate like a math department.
Teachers were getting body slammed over Nintendos. The Department of Education didn't protect them either. Now Trump is, whether they like it or not. One girl got her head bashed into concrete and was put in critical condition. Schools looked like fight clubs, and parents had no choice but to leave them in their crumbling schools because the unions and the big education people block charter schools. Meanwhile, D.C. politicians all send their sons and daughters to private schools, while kids in public schools are using old textbooks and technology. And then when they graduate, illiterate, they're told to get a college degree. So they go to some no-name college worth way too much money and get worthless degrees in communications. 4 years later, they're out of college, no job, and in debt. What do? We bail them out. Remember Joel? He finished grad school in 98, decided to become a professional musician. He doesn't make much money and chose to stop paying off his student loans. But thanks to Biden, Joel had his $250,000 of debt wiped. There are plenty of Joels out there, people who are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt with no job, living with their parents. This isn't what we're paying for. Our education system's broken, and it's been like that for a while. Here's Steve Jobs.
If you ask who are the customers of education, the customers are the parents, not even the students, but the parents. And the problem that we have in this country is that the customers went away.
The customers stopped paying attention to their schools for the most part. Mothers started working, and they didn't have time to spend at PTA meetings and watching their kids' school. Schools became much more institutionalized, and parents spent less and less and less time involved in their kids' education. And what happens when a customer goes away and a monopoly gets control, which is what's happened in our country, is that the service level almost always goes down.